Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast, using data-driven insights to minimize loss, maximize revenue, and secure C-store locations, hosted by Convenience Store News and sponsored by DTiQ. I'm Don Longo, Editorial Director of Convenience Store News, and I'm your moderator today. We'll get started in a few moments. While we wait for others to join us, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items before we begin. The materials in this webcast have been reviewed by our editorial staff. However, the views of the speakers and their organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Convenience Store News or its publisher, Ensemble IQ. One of our goals is to make this session as interactive as possible. You can use the Q&A function on the left side of your screen below the presenter headshots to ask questions throughout the webinar. I'll hold these questions until the conclusion of the presentation and then pose them on your behalf. Your identity will remain confidential to the audience. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, we will follow up with you after the session concludes via email. You can also use this session if you have any technical questions about the webinar itself, and you will get a direct reply from the webinar producer. At the end of the event, we'll have a webcast evaluation survey. We encourage you to provide feedback using this feature. If you wish to review this webcast or share it with your colleagues, a replay of this web seminar will be available within 2 hours for most platforms, including smartphones and tablets. Now on to our presentation. Using data-driven insights to minimize loss, maximize revenue, and secure C-store locations, sponsored by DTiQ. A growing number of convenience store operators are turning to intelligent video and advanced analytics to boost their competitive edge and margins. By integrating traditional surveillance infrastructure with point-of-sale transactions and business analytics, these operators are finding they can dramatically reduce losses, increase revenue, and improve safety, and they can do so from anywhere. We're excited to have two terrific guest speakers for our webcast today. Colin Dornish is Director of Operations for Cohen Oil Company, and Mike Coffey is CEO of DTiQ. They're going to discuss how Cohen Oil Company keeps a virtual eye on more than 65 convenience store locations throughout Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. Working with DTiQ, Cohen has on-demand access to all of the operational intelligence they need to manage their distributed network of stores. Colin, you'll find, is a passionate, multi-talented convenience store operator. He has held various roles within Cohen, such as retail analyst, corporate and development, FP&A manager, interim IT lead, and now director of operations. Colin also experienced both buy-side and sell-side M&A activities, most recently through the acquisition of Kogos, which was completed in 2019 for 35 locations, and previously involved on the divestiture of Cohen Energy and Cohen Transportation in October 2017 to Sprague Energy. In addition to M&A activities, Colin has played a role in Cohen's ERP system upgrade in 2015, implementing a document management solution in 2016, and completing a cash management overhaul in 2018, which involved installing smart safes and automating the cash depositing flow. Colin has developed a strong business acumen to evaluate opportunities to implement technology to improve efficiencies in business processes. Mike Coffey is CEO of DTiQ. He has 20 years of experience as a technology executive, having led multiple companies in various technology leadership positions, including the Internet of Things, machine-to-machine intelligence, and software as service spaces. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Colin and Mike. Take it away, guys.
Yeah, Don, thank you very much. This is Mike Coffey speaking. I really appreciate the introduction. I mean, this is not about me. I mean, I've as you said, I've worked with a number of really incredible organizations during my career who are doing interesting things using technology and using services and just really driving their businesses. And our focus at DTiQ is really how we help them. And Colin and Cohen Oil are a terrific customer of ours. They're a terrific company. And I think what you didn't say about Colin, and I'll add here, and I think it's great, is that every time we talk to him, he is, and our operators on the call really appreciate this. He's always on the go, and he's either in the field helping his team, or he's trying to make things better for the business, and he's wearing multiple hats, and certainly the operators on this webcast will really appreciate what that's like. So, Don, thanks very much. Colin, welcome. I'll let you add anything about your background, Colin, that you feel is useful.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Don, for the introduction. Happy to be here today, and this is an example of a business tool that we added that we're very excited about. We've shared within our own study groups in this industry, and happy to be able to provide some information to operators out there on DTiQ's solution and how this can impact their business. It's done a fantastic job for us through our implementation, and excited to kind of share what we have learned from the implementation.
Yeah, great. Appreciate it. Why don't we kick things off then and roll? We're going to keep this reasonably conversational. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about our two organizations just for a couple minutes of background, and then walk through really what makes Cohen's business so special, and in some respects a bit of background of where and how they've moved the business forward using technology and services that are pretty special. So the first thing I would say is, just in a world with too many priorities, and you all have too many priorities, we really like to talk about how to really drive the things that you can control in your business. You can't control how many cars drive by every day, but you can certainly control what happens when somebody pulls in the parking lot and comes inside, and how do you really make the best possible experience for them. So if we go to the next slide here, the DTiQ slide, our passion, I mean, what gets us really excited, it's really seeing our customers thrive. We know how hard the space is. I think we really appreciate the kinds of customer demands that you all have. There's new technology out there. There's tons of labor challenges depending on where you are in the country. And our passion is to really help you succeed. I mean, we had an example. We had a owner of a store come to us with a problem where their whole third shift, that they were just having what they thought was really a huge reduction in business. It had historically run at a particular rate. It was down about 30%, and they came to us and said, look, how do you help us? And this is just the stuff that we love. I can tell you that we helped them, and we used both technology and we used services. We looked at the behaviors of the customers, the employee interactions. I can just tell you there was everything from safety issues that were scaring customers away to challenges with staffing and policies, and really just very poor service in the overnight hours, and even some management issues that were having a huge effect. And our belief is that throughout the year, lots of things can happen. And we believe that by using services as an operator, you can really tilt the odds in your favor. And this example that I gave, we used video, we used audio inside the store to really proactively measure what was going on. And I think that's what's so different about our business. So what makes us special is we take video, we combine it with the data, and we use that in a way to build benchmarks and measure the behaviors that really drive your bottom line, whether that is employee behaviors, whether that's cleanliness, whether that's customer engagement, safety, you name it. And we do that in a way that employees can feel better and safer, and owners and managers, operators can, frankly, get a better result. So in a nutshell, that's our business. I won't spend any more time on us. Really, the star of our show today is Colin and Cohen, and I'll let us go to the next slide and let Colin give us an introduction to Cohen.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Cohen has been around since 1923. We've kind of evolved with the times, especially in the last 20 years, but more recently in the last 10. And, after our acquisition with Kogos, we have a 700 team member base here in Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio, operating 65 convenience stores. And we're going through a massive overhaul of our locations, and really kind of setting the tone for what we want to be with regards to our store offer, our branding, and so forth. So you can see the picture is one of our newer remodeled locations, and we're doing a fresh, prepared on-site chicken program inside the store in a 300 square foot kitchen. We have beer offer in Pennsylvania, which is a rarity. We have a bunch of different food service programs that we have across the chain, and we're looking to unify them in one single brand, and that's the Cohen branding that's portrayed on that slide there. So, with our business, we have a lot of unique challenges with the different types of operations. We have full food, extended grab-and-go, and basic grab-and-go, and each of them have their own requirements and needs and so forth. And from a building perspective, we have a whole bunch of different size stores from 1,100 square foot all the way up to 5,500 square foot. And so, looking at our base, no two boxes are the same, and we definitely, are in a continued growth pattern and looking to continue to open stores, remodel locations, and have a healthy bench of products underway. And, that's really where we kind of started this discussion and really look to a provider to help us grow with us. And, I think that's where DTiQ and Cohen kind of came together very nicely.
Yeah, Colin, that's helpful. A little background: if you go back 5 years, I mean, the three formats you have now, the full food service, the extended grab and go, and the basic grab and go. How has that changed for you, and what kind of dynamics have you seen changing around the industry? I mean, presumably what you're seeing is consistent in your region with what we see around the rest of the country. But help us think through that changing dynamic.
Well, there's been a heavy focus on food and the food service offer, and we operate in a hotbed area where there's a lot of heavy big players such as Sheetz, Get-Go, Speedway, and some other chains out there doing their food service program. And it's definitely where the industry's headed. Every single NAC show we go to, it seems like the food service area of kitchen equipment and products is growing at a rapid rate. And what we've kind of looked at is our base of stores. For a while there in the first kind of 3 years, our store count was remaining the same, but we were consistently kind of divesting locations and acquiring locations and maintaining the same store count and looking to grow in that food service sector, acquiring larger locations that are more ample for food service and so forth. And so, we've seen a dynamic shift of where we're going with the food service offer, refining the menu, the process, the procedures, and really kind of, identifying what we want to be our hero and our brand offer. And, once that has been established, then that sets the tone for the footprint that's needed, the intangible items that come with that, such as your kitchen equipment that's needed, your size of your box that's needed, and so forth. And it becomes a scalable model at that point.
Sure, that makes sense. And have you seen that are you happy with the margins in the food service space versus traditional? Have you seen that they've changed and grown and expanded over time, or has it been a space that you've had any challenges as you've expanded into?
Well, I mean, I think with obviously some risk, there's definitely higher reward in the food service area, and to our typical bread and butter of cigarettes, cokes, and smokes, it's definitely a higher output in the food service area, as well as it creates that tie with a customer. As when you're providing them a meal and a satisfying experience in your store, they're much more likely to remember your store because it's different than the other store. So you can get Marlboro Golds in any store, but you can't get our chicken at any store, and that's kind of one of the directions that we've selected to go in the really fresh, made-to-order food service program in that direction.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've seen that as well, obviously, with the co-locations of QSRs and convenience stores, and that's something that it's a space that we know quite a lot about with thousands of QSR customers in addition to our C-store customers. So I think we've seen that's an evolving trend on many levels, either with your own and with all sorts of private label options, or with branded even QSR options inside stores. The thing that we find is interesting, we hear from customers, is that it changes the management dynamic, right? Instead of a small footprint store, instead of a store with maybe one employee per shift behind the counter, suddenly you've got more things going on and more to measure, more to look at, more challenges to deal with. Help us think through what kind of challenges did you face when you started rolling this out and got into it?
Yeah, I mean, in the food service stores, and one of the nice features with the system was to be able to, have more cameras in those locations than some of our just heritage locations that didn't have the food service offer. Because, really with a proper food service program, you need to keep an eye on the actual physical area where we're making the food. But if you just look at apples to apples from a food service location to a smaller box, you're talking about 2,000 square foot more for our food service location. You're talking probably 10 to 15 more employees for a food service location. And so, with all those, you have more infrastructure, more team members, and it's a lot more of a business to manage than your typical model.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. We hear that a lot as well. And so your solutions before around, if I think about store technology that's in your store, obviously everybody has a point of sale system, and we're very familiar with those. We in terms of our business integrate with existing point of sale systems and then use that data to inform what's going on in the restaurant. Well, what other kinds of technologies did you traditionally have, and what other solutions did you originally have, and how did you measure the effectiveness of stores before? Was it really just, hey, we'll look at the sales data and the point of sale data, or did you have other technology solutions to measure what was going on inside a store?
So we leverage our ERP system that's capturing POS data, it's capturing transactional data and so forth, and rolling it into a business intelligence tool to report out how we're doing with regards to our sales, our gross profit margin, and how coming through the doors, what are our data points around, customers, transactions, and sales and profitability. But we did not have that capability to have that data, kind of reviewed at a different level, and that's really where DTiQ came into play for us. Because historically in our systems, we were somewhat fragmented from the surveillance system, and we had different versions, and basically anything you could get off the shelf at Home Depot or online with regards to systems, and we figured out a way to connect them via the internet, but we weren't really mining what was occurring in the stores before we implemented the solution.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, that makes sense. That's something actually that we hear quite a bit, which is there's either a lot of fragmentation and therefore there's not a consistency. And the other thing we hear a lot is I want to know why, right? So my ERP system in your case, or my point of sale system, can give me data. It can show me that I have a sales issue, or I have a margin issue, or I have a certain customer count. But actually, the customer count in that case is really just the people that actually create transactions. I could perhaps be interested in as well how many people just come through the front door, how many versus check sizes of families versus individuals versus groups that buy. I could also be interested in a really easy to use video and audio way to answer the question why. So the data shows me that there's a trend. The data shows me that something's happening. But then when I can actually see and listen into a location, I can then, frankly, I can then validate the results, with my own eyes. We hear that a lot actually, which sounds very similar to what you're saying. So that's great. What kinds of users used the systems before? What kinds of people in your organization used the system before? What kind of people use the system now?
So, I mean, that was part of the way our legacy system was managed. Our store managers were the primary users of the program, and that was like the actual pulling of video. If there would be an incident in the store, we would get an incident report coming into our office, and the first directive would be to go down to the store manager and have them scrub the data, and go through the different times and hit the arrow buttons and try to find where the incident occurred. And really, it was an onerous task from a store level perspective. And from a training atmosphere. Our IT department was supporting it if there was an issue with regards to the hard drives and so forth. But really, I think that, there's a true benefit that when we flipped that hurdle and we went to, a remote managed system where you've got the back end support, our users changed from our store managers to really our office users and district managers, and there's an HR component to it, there's a safety component to it, and it was less laborious work and more review and being able to see things. So it really fundamentally shifted pre and post implementation.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great. That's back to how you answer that why question. So an incident happens, and in the old way, an incident, then you've got to go out and actually, either dig through or pull hard drives and do all sorts of, old school ways to get access to what should be pretty simple. And the result of that is you've got pretty specialized users. You don't get a lot of users inside an organization such as yours that really use the tools to really see what's going on remotely. And then with a newer modern tool that uses video and then uses it in a proactive fashion, not only are you looking at incidents, you also start looking at things proactively because the system starts alerting you. The system will give you a little ding and say, hey, we noticed that your age verification requirements were not being met when we reviewed and audited last week. Because one of the things that makes the DTiQ solution unique and special is the ability for us to essentially remotely audit the kinds of things that are really important to you. So if something like, hey, we've had a number of age verification violations in a particular store, maybe a particular shift or employees or managers, we want to review that more proactively. The system can be trained to essentially more proactively look at those kinds of interactions and be able to alert you ahead of time. And then suddenly that can happen in days, and you can have the users in the organization go from one or two people that are digging through trying to look up historical things to suddenly benefit at store managers, benefit at regional managers, benefit. You mentioned HR. That's great. That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, that's exactly what we like to hear. So,
and Mike, we found ourselves consistently having, in that old environment, we found ourselves consistently having issues with, proper videos being recorded, transmitting the data. So, if you think about, things happening on flash drives and trying to manage what was on what flash drive and making sure that it gets to the right people. So, whether it be an HR incident, getting it into our HR team, or whether it's a, request from an outside company, we had all this kind of labor tied up into trying to get the video and then getting it to the people, and often we would find ourselves getting return visits or return emails saying, oh, I couldn't view that video and so forth. And we then also found ourselves with camera placement issues too as well, where we would be sitting in safety meetings going over incidents and saying, oh, this particular incident we didn't have a good viewpoint on, or whether it was another incident in the store, oh, we didn't have it captured correctly or whatever. So we found ourselves with all these variations of problems and so forth, and that was kind of what planted the seed for us to start saying, okay, we definitely know we need to get something, and what's that system going to look for us, and started brainstorming out what we were looking for in a new system, knowing that we had a lot of just legacy issues with our current process at the time.
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes great sense. How did you find DTiQ then? I mean, what we the kinds of things you're talking about are the kinds of problems we solve, right? We think that when you connect video and audio to the cloud, and then you can push a button and instantly get access to that and be able to flag those kinds of events and save them to the cloud. That is the power of cloud computing, and you can do that reasonably easily. But how'd you find DTiQ? What was the process like getting introduced to them, and what was the rollout process like?
So we were at the NACS trade show in 2017, and with a mission to kind of really it's a great opportunity to get in front of different vendors and go side by side and look at everybody's solution and so forth. And we kind of did it as a due diligence effort. So while at the NAC show, we were introduced to Chris Tobacco, the director of C-Store sales for your team, and really started talking about it. Kind of took her card and said, okay, maybe some of this conversation is, sales talk, and we'll go back to our office and kind of, diligence this out. And, it was a very interesting shift in what we were looking for after we spoke with Krista and your team on one of the first sales calls, because, historically we were looking at a system that was going to be able to solve our problem that we knew we had. But then there was, through conversation and dialogue with the team at DTiQ, that, there were things that we didn't even know were available to us that really had a fundamental impact to the business. And so we started looking at it and saying, well, yeah, that would be great. That would be amazing to have. And, that wasn't something that was offered by any of the other players that we were looking at. And, so we kind of then shifted our focus towards DTiQ. And one of the topics in particular was around the smart auditing, and as well as, leveraging the system as a service, which was something that was, not historically what we were looking for. But I think as we started to kind of brainstorm out how this was going to, be a material tool for us that we could leverage, and how it was going to grow with us and scale with us, the flexibility of the system, being able to, grow into it or add stuff is really around, really a benefit that we did not see in any of the other avenues that we were diligencing at the time. So we kind of explored that. And, we got instant sign-off from the different department heads saying, yeah, that's amazing if it can do this for us, and, definite buy-in from the leadership team. And, then it went to the rollout phase, and it was just a very unique experience where you could see the teams that were doing these implementations were professionals. And this is, the installation, they kind of charted it all out with a project management timeline and said, okay, here's how many stores we're going to do this week, next week. And they built in a buffer. And for the first 28 locations, they said it would take 3 weeks. They ended up getting it done in around two in a day or so. So they beat that expectation. They got our sites online, and really it was truly remarkable to see the different components of the process kind of come together. So you had your implementation team, you have a training team, you have a support team, and they were working in unison to make sure that, from start to finish, the stores were rewired for cameras, the setup was complete, the integration to our POS was complete, and really, it was pretty remarkable the amount of, the quickness that we were able to implement across the legacy channel. And then, we acquired Kogos, and it was almost like a step back, or a little bit of deja vu, because there was some fragmented systems out there and not on the network, surveillance systems and so forth. And we immediately said, we need to continue this through. And that's where the scalability of DTiQ is. They were able to come together and charge through those locations and get them implemented quickly, and it really makes a difference. And then on top of that, we've had locations where we've had to remodel, and being able to have support to be able to move cameras, readjust, realign what that looks like. It's definitely a different experience with regards to the support level that we've been able to receive, as well as, if we need to grow or add a camera here or there, it's definitely evolves with our needs. So, that was kind of, we started looking for X, and I think we ended up with Y, and we're very happy that we have Y.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Colin. That's terrific. I tell you, it's actually the hardest part of the DTiQ business for us, and I'll always say this, is the installation process. At the end of the day, we're working in your business, in your most precious locations, and that's something that we take very, very seriously. And it's hard. It's hard to find the right times where your schedules align and you want people in your stores, and these are, these like having people in your stores and installing things is always hard. We can make software measure incredible things. We can measure how employees are engaged with customers. We can measure audio interactions and look at point of sale data and analyze data and compare all that with video. That stuff's hard too, but it's actually easy by comparison to when we have people on site in your store. So I'm happy to hear that went well. You mentioned the smart audits. Smart audits are really an often overlooked and one of the most important features of our solution. And it sounds like you're really using those proactively in your business. Help us. So for the audience, the smart audit it's really, I view it, and the way I describe it to our customers is, I view it as the one thing you want to look at every week or every 2 weeks. You can have a manager, whether a regional manager, store manager, and they can be sometimes inundated with data. And the smart audit, it's the one bit of prescriptive feedback where we actually measure the safety, the cleanliness, the employee engagement, all the things we've been talking about. We measure all those. We score all those. We give them a score, like on any kind of audit, or like on a high school test, like on a college test. Hey, you got a B, you got an A, you got a C. We give the score to the store, and then we score all the stores. We put all that in a database, and you can measure things like speed of service and employee engagement and cleanliness and safety, and you can measure all these things over time. And the kinds of things you measure and where you focus the audit is really up to you in your business, and that's what makes it such a, we believe, a powerful tool. It sounds like you guys have used it pretty heavily. What kinds of things have you measured, Colin, with the smart audits? How have you found them valuable? What have they allowed you to be proactive, allowed your managers to be proactive with?
So the smart audit feature for us has been a total game changer. And, as you mentioned, you get one of these per month, per each location. And, realistically, we view this as a non-biased review of how our stores are performing, not just from a sales perspective, but, how are they performing on managing our policies and procedures, whether it be safety initiatives, working safely, or, whether they're following our guidelines around, cell phone usage at the registers and so forth. So, the smart audits for us have been something that's really been impactful, and we've, through the smart audits, have received a lot of feedback, and we deliver that feedback through the store. Smart audits have been, advising us of bad behavior in our stores with some employees, and have called to action. And through the smart audit process, the auditors, remote auditors, have been able to find some issues in our stores that you wouldn't necessarily see, because everybody's visit is a little bit different. So when our DMs go into the locations, they get a different experience than our customer. When I go into the locations, I get a different experience than our customer, because, whether it's an announced visit or unannounced, there's different things that occur. And really, this smart audit process takes all that bias out of there, and it really just evaluates the store apples to apples of a snippet of time, leveraging data to say, what are some of these things we want to focus on. We leverage it for age verification, cleanliness, out of stocks, just overall operational efficiencies and so forth. And, I think for us, it's been a really impactful tool from store level perspective to know that there are set eyes on this. This will come out every month. It's not something where we're going to take a month off on this. And I think it's really a unique way to look at your business, and it's surprising. You would think, really could they find this, or could they see this from a camera? And with the quality of the cameras and tying that into other data feeds such as POS and et cetera, you're really able to pinpoint issues in the stores. And then it comes out in a report format where, it's not subjective. Our team and our district manager are able to see these reports, see, okay, this is what's gone on. And typically, it's a chain reaction. And we've now kind of leveraged it as, the smart audits. If it's negative, elicits an investigation, from the district manager or the store manager. If it's positive, we're looking at it and congratulating these stores for it. So it's been very, very powerful tool for us, and we're continuing to adapt it with the flexibility, Mike, as you mentioned, where we're in control of those questions. It's not DTiQ, these are the only questions you have. If there's certain initiatives and we look towards, spring readiness and so forth, that we're going to kind of revamp what the questions are, we can keep it fresh. So we're looking at different parts of the business, making sure we have compliance in certain areas, making sure we have safety and so forth. So it's definitely can evolve with your business. It's ever changing, but it is a staple where it's, you've got this non-biased perspective of your stores.
That's great. Thank you. That's great. You mentioned the customer experience. I mean, we see actually a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, I use Mystery Shopping," or they say, "Yeah, of course, I mean, there's no substitute for management being in a store, right? But management can't be in a store all the time, especially if you have a DM and they've got, whether they've got 3, 5, 10, 20 stores, depends how many you have, but they can't be in a store all the time. And if I had a nickel for every time I heard, oh, my employees have been with me 5+ years and they do everything perfectly, and then actually we turn on the smart audits and we start looking at things, and you can find some patterns of things that are done pretty well and things that are done poorly, and when you measure those over time, it's very, very objective, and that objectivity creates better results, and is a very clear link to that. That's terrific. The other thing you mentioned around the smart audits, I think it's really important for the audience to think about it. It's with labor being such a challenge in this space, and turnover being such a challenge, how you reward positive behaviors is one of the things that we suggest people take very, very seriously, and that is, if you find via the smart audits, so you can hold off on mystery shopping, and you can use smart audits to really use video and audio to verify fantastic associates who are doing a great job for customers. The key is to be very, very proactive in the way you positively reward them for that. I'm curious if you guys have, you don't have to give exact details, but rewards, incentive programs, how you use the audit scores. Do you look at the audit scores? You mentioned, really giving the high five, pat on the back, that as well. I mean, we've seen that to be instrumental in changing performance. But how do you guys think about using the scores and the performance, measuring employee performance, and tying it all together?
Yeah, we're in the process of implementing a different portion of our manager bonus program to advertise what these scores are and what this looks like for the store manager, as well as working through a solution of how do we post this in the stores, because at the end of the day, everybody has a part in this particular audit. It's not just the store manager getting a grade, it's the store employees and so forth. So from a greeting aspect and from a just an overall practices and so forth, it's the whole store that is being evaluated, and we want to make sure that the store shares in the successes of a good audit, and as well as that we get to the bottom of any bad audits. And we've definitely kind of evolved over the years with how we incentivize our team. This portion of our score or manager bonus program will be baked out further and really kind of tie in the store manager and the team to the incentive of a successful audit. So we're actively pursuing that and having it almost kind of like a wild card into our manager bonus program.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We've seen a ton of results of that. One of our customers, I can think very specifically, I know pretty well on. They're actually part Canadian, part U.S. customer, and around 500 or so locations, and they very heavily tie some of their performance, these kinds of goals and measurement around these, to their performance incentives, and they've had tremendous results because of it. So it's we're big believers in that. On the flip side, I mean, this is a business where we all have stories of some of the best things we've seen, sure, but there's also a lot of some of the worst things you've seen. What are perhaps some of the worst things or the worst behaviors that you've seen improvements around in the new world with the new solution, if you will?
Well, I mean, it's definitely one of those things. It's good and bad, but you hate to see it. And to your example of sometimes your best employees, or notionally the people that you think are your strongest employees, are ending up doing bad things with regards to breaking operational controls or so forth. And we've seen a few of those instances through this process. There was another incident regarding a location, And I think it speaks to the clarity of the camera system, this incident that we saw, which was kind of mind-boggling for our team. But we had a customer come in, and on their way out the door, they kind of dropped something out of their kind of pocket, and it turned out to be, that they dropped drugs. And, the police were involved in this investigation, and the DTiQ system was able to pinpoint and see the pixel change and to identify the individual, which was kind of astonishing because the camera would be, maybe from a ceiling perspective to the front door, very hard to kind of visually see it, but a very crisp, clear camera was able to capture this, and we were able to provide them with a clear imagery versus, a pixelated or distorted or just kind of say, well, chalk it up to one of the guests, the 100 guests that came through that door within the last couple hours.
No, that's one of the most common things we hear when you look at the Costco systems of the world or the Amazon systems of the world. One of the most common things we hear is there's some quality challenges. There's challenges with the consistency of management across lots of stores, and then having to self-support it yourself. And at the end of the day, a system like ours is not really more expensive, or a whole lot more expensive when you add it up and you look at the ROI. I mean, the reality is those systems are sold at a really consumer grade level, whereas we go out and we take our own custom manufactured technology from cameras. We have our own software development team that builds our own software, and we've specifically designed it for people who have stores, really, stores and restaurants. And the result of that is we map very, very well to those environments, and we map very cost effectively to those environments, frankly. So the quality is quite high for the comparable price points. But that's I'll pass on that. Fair enough. I think, Colin, you guys have a great business. You've been reinventing the business. You've been making acquisitions. You've been changing the format of some of the stores. You've been deploying technology to really make a difference. I mean, these are all great examples. I have nothing but admiration for yourself and for Cohen, and we really appreciate it. I mean, maybe we should turn this call over to some Q&A while we've got another 10 or 15 minutes left, and see what kind of questions we have from the audience.
Thank you, guys, for that was excellent and really informative, Colin and Mike. I can't help but note that we've been covering the changes and evolution going on in the convenience store industry, and the impact of growing food service sales as such an important business imperative for retailers, and yet this type of growth wouldn't happen if it's not supported by investments in technology like the ones you're talking about. So you can make a big effort in menu development and fresh food, but if you don't have the technology, your business in that area could very well suffer. So thank you for bringing that point home to everybody in the audience. So as we begin today's Q&A, please remember to submit your questions using the Q&A feature on the left side of your screen. Also, if we run out of time before getting to your question, our presenter will get back to you privately with a response. Also, please remember to fill out the evaluation survey that will automatically appear on your screen at the conclusion of the event. So now let's go on to the first question that we have here. This is for Colin. Colin, one of our audience members, wants to know, did you get any employee resistance when you did this?
Well, I think one of the things that we positioned this system up at the front end of this implementation was around safety, and really kind of broadcast to our team that this was not a move for us to kind of get a big brother feature, but more a feature for us to keep our team members safer. We have the front-facing monitors up by our cash registers for our team members to view exterior visibility at the pumps as well as interior visibility within the stores. And some of our locations that have a larger format, that's a very nice feature so that someone doesn't just sneak up on them or so forth. So, we position this as a safety implementation and really to provide our employees with a safer environment that we can operate in. I think they immediately saw the impact from the camera system, such as, being able to see different parts of the store, exterior, interior, and I think there was definitely with that approach more engagement, and they can see, okay, yes, there's better clarity and so forth. And then once smart audits came out, there was feedback given, and I think at that point in time, it was already past the point with regards to the store level, reaction that they were already positive about the system. It didn't feel like it was, invasive. And, we leveraged it in a way where we weren't like going out there and really kind of guns blazing with this information, but it did curb a lot of the stuff from a store level perspective of at the register, age verification, and so forth. So, I would say it was the way we positioned it to the stores, the way that we were kind of going in there and really improving the clarity at store level, front and focused, and then also kind of providing some feedback, positive and negative, on the backside of that as well.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I would add,
Don. Go ahead,
Don,
Mike.
I would add to this too. I mean, one of the most important features we have, and it's actually not a feature, just in full disclosure, it's not a feature that we use with Colin and Cohen because it's a feature that we've just launched as of, we haven't even publicized the launch too much, but we're well into 500 plus stores that are using it now in our first launch through a couple very large chains actually. But the feature is a video interactive alarm integration. So the challenge is this, right? If you're a single employee, you can often be pretty nervous to work in one of these stores by yourself, and especially late at night, depending on the shifts. And the alarm is really only good in that catastrophic situation where you push a button and then the police come X minutes later. We've developed and implemented an interactive button where you push the button and then essentially via a speaker, one of our live operators comes on the speaker and says, hey, we're now actively monitoring this location. So you can use it in, there's a number of scenarios you can use it. You can use it in proactive situations. You can use it in a situation where a certain, either you have vagrancy issues or a certain, you have to train the employees on when the right times to use it, not the right times to use it are, but they feel perhaps threatened, but they're not really ready to go to the police. And you can, it gives the employees the ability to essentially push a panic button and have someone come in via speaker. And if there is a real alarm issue or a real security issue, then we have a licensed dispatch police at that point in time. So that's a live interactive feature that ties right into our system. It's part of our system, and that's one where you can say to people, hey, look, we've really got your safety in mind. And we've had this customer I was talking about a moment ago, that customer's told us, frankly, this has been one of their biggest benefits to being able to hire people on their late shifts. So a little bit of a comment on one of the benefits of how technology can help in that respect.
Sure.
Mike,
That's terrific. Yeah. Go ahead, Colin.
Mike, just to piggyback on that, because it didn't really come across clear in the slide deck, but that example, although we're not using it, was another reason of a pro that we looked at for your solution was, as a company, there's a lot of innovation happening. So it's, out of the box, the system is not going to just stay the system. There's tons of opportunity and options to continue to evolve. And you, as a company, you guys are continually looking at other opportunities in our space with similar retailers or similar business industries and really figuring out, okay, what solutions do customers wanting, as well as soliciting impact from us as customers to say, where do we want to see improvement or innovation or so forth. And it keeps the system from just being stale or just kind of being configured one way and that's it. It's definitely a very neat thing to see as a vendor partner, your ability and your tenacity to want to evolve and create a bigger and better system.
Great. Thanks, Colin. The next question looks like it's for Mike. Does DTiQ interface with Radiant NCR and Verifone Commander's POS?
Yeah. Okay. So technology. The short answer is it was rate NCR. Yes. Yes. On two out of three for sure today. The third one, it's. I mean, we integrate with 25 different point of sale systems today. If if we don't, oftentimes it comes down to the specific version. It could be the equivalent of version 1.0 versus 1.1, and it just depends
Mhm.
which version an organization has deployed. So we have 25 different, totally different POSs that we integrate with today. It's a matter of weeks for us to integrate with a new POS. It's not, it's something that we have down to a science. We're very very good at, as long as we have support from the POS vendors. So those two out of the three of those, yes. I, it depends on the exact versions. I just encourage somebody to talk to us about those. We can have a conversation, and we could certainly get it done in a pretty quick fashion if we don't have it.
Cool, cool. And then similarly, can you use existing camera systems?
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the beauties of the system. Our solution's pretty simple, right? It works with the existing point of sale, and it works with the existing cameras. As long as those cameras are of a, we talked a lot in this call about quality, and there were some things you could do if the camera quality is good enough, and it just depends. It depends how they're wired, and it depends if they're relatively new and modern. But if they're relatively new and modern, then absolutely we can work with existing camera systems, and it's usually, I mean, that's part of the beauty, right? Some customers have called us up on a Monday, been up and running on a Thursday, and then called us over the weekend and said, "Wow, you already pointed out two things that I didn't even know were happening, and thank you." And that's because we work with the existing point of sale and some of the existing cameras in location, and therefore the installation and getting the technology and the solution and the services working is it's a lot faster. And our services team is pretty unique too. We have 100 plus people in the field. These are people who are really experts at helping DMs and store managers in their jobs. And if we find something in audits and via video, and somebody raises their hand and says, "You know what, I just don't know how to solve this. I don't have the right operational and hiring procedures. I don't have the right safety and security procedures. What do I do about it?" We actually have a field consulting team that can drop in. I mean, we'd like to say 90% of the stores in the United States are within an hour's drive of one of our team members. And so I guess, yes, we work with existing cameras, we work with existing teams, we work with existing locations. That's all part of the game for us.
Great. Well, back to Colin. The question for Colin. How do you use technology and data at the dispensers and tanks to ensure your dispensers are working and tanks have enough fuel to keep customers happy and the tanks full, etc.?
So, I mean, we're using DTiQ to monitor our dispensers as far as, customers using them. There's other programs out there that do inventory management for fuel and broadcast that inventory out. I know that majority of the manufacturers who make the dispensers leverage technology to be able to, provide flow rates electronically, to provide inventory electronically, and so forth. But typically, from the usage of our surveillance system, we're looking at protecting the assets with regards to fuel. So one of the big improvements that we saw was around capturing incidents and accidents at the dispensers. So if a dispenser was hit, or we have a claim on the dispenser or so forth. We just had one at the end of the year last year. Being able to provide that information, was an insurance and a claim and an incident capture. But I think that as far as leveraging this system to know how much fuel's in the ground, it's not doing that for us today. But it's definitely being utilized on the forecourt from an asset management standpoint.
Great, great. Okay, next question. Does DTiQ system include a back office accounting system that ties into existing POS, such as Passport?
Yeah, sure. So that's for me. The answer is no. We don't include it, but we integrate with lots of different kinds of systems. So one of our customers wanted us to integrate with essentially their time card system, because they were having some undocumented worker challenges that they wanted to police pretty strongly. They wanted to frankly count the number of employees via video analytics behind the counter and compare that to the number of employees that had punched in the time card system. So we integrate with the time card system, and we do that. That's an example of a different system that we would integrate with, a back office system such as an ERP system. We can absolutely integrate with those systems. We do have a couple we integrate with, but we don't sell one and include it with our solution. We're pretty focused on the things that are uniquely measurable via video and audio. And what I mean by that is the customer experience, the employee experience, you name it.
Okay, great. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left, so why don't we? Anybody who didn't get their questions answered, as I promised, we'll get back to you following this session. But Mike, Colin, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we go?
No, I mean, from me, I'll let Colin go. Colin's the star of the show here. This is a tremendous company, and Colin's a tremendous customer, and they're really moving the ball forward. I thank you very, very much for the time, Colin. I'm happy to take any questions from anybody offline. I know our team's able to take any questions, and we, like I said, we've got a real passion for helping all our operator partners here, and we'd be thrilled to talk to people and thrilled to take them through ways we can help their business. And Colin's such a shining, great example of that. Thank you very much, Colin.
Mike, thank you very much. And, just for the viewers, I think, one of the things around this particular program is it's scalable for whether you have, one location, and as Mike's example was 500 plus locations. So, it's definitely a scalable model, and it's a very leveraged tool that we're using in our toolbox. We're happy to have it from our operations team here, and happy to continue to see the growth that you guys are experiencing as well, and appreciate you guys thinking of us for this opportunity here for today's conversation.
Great, thank you, Colin. Thank you, Mike, for sharing your thoughts on how to use the data and video to improve your business. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webcast, using data-driven insights to minimize loss, maximize revenue, and secure C-store locations, sponsored by DTiQ. And, thanks for your time and have a great day.
Thanks much. You as well, John.